Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA predictions for Strikeforce, Barnett versus Kharitonov. The event will take place on September 10th, 2011. I'm going to do predictions for 5 main card fights along with 3 preliminaries that we'll be able to see on HDNet. We've got a middleweight title fight, and we have 2 Grand Prix semifinals that will set up our tournament finals, which should be very exciting. Coming off pretty subpar show. I went 4-4 on the prediction show, and at UFC 134, not my greatest show, not my worst. I'm definitely looking to improve here. I feel confident about these picks, and hopefully I'll be able to get back to my winning ways. And I've been challenged to a prediction contest by a couple different MMA predictors on YouTube. Hopefully I'll have more details for my next show. I think I'm going to take the challenge, and we'll keep track. We're going to race to a certain win total. When I have more details, I'll give you more details. And on that note, let's get right to the predictions. Alright, so I'm going to kick off my first 3 set of Strikeforce predictions in the welterweight division. And these are going to be 3 very good preliminary fights, along with a couple other ones I'm not providing predictions for. They're going to be available on HDNet, so check them out. We're going to see the debut of 3 very good prospects. The first one is Canadian-born Jordan Meehan. He's taking on veteran Evangelista Santos. Now, Jordan Meehan, he's making his debut, and he's fresh off a victory over former Strikeforce welterweight title contender and dream welterweight champion Marius Aramskis. In that bout, Meehan showed good striking. His technique was both solid offensively and defensively, and he had some impressive conditioning. He was able to fight the entire fight very evenly and didn't seem to gas out. Santos, on the other hand, he's a veteran. He has a lot of big fight experience, but he does have cardio issues, and he has suffered 8 career knockouts. If Meehan can endure Santos' early onslaught, he should be able to wear him down and score the knockout. So I'm going to take Jordan Meehan to make his debut with a victory over Evangelista Santos by stoppage. Next, we move to light heavyweight division as Yoel Romero will take on Rafael Feijoa. Now, Romero, he's a newcomer to MMA with 4 fights, but all 4 fights are wins, and they're all by TKO. In freestyle wrestling, he medaled 5 times at the World Championships and took home a silver medal at the 2000 Sydney Olympics. He has explosive takedowns, good top control, and moving from the ring to the cage will only enhance the effectiveness of his mat game. Feijoa, he is the former divisional champion, and he has far more experience both in quantity and quality. His striking is by far his best attribute. He has 9 career knockouts, but he is coming off a TKO defeat against Dan Henderson when he dropped his title. Now, the Olympic wrestler, he's going to have the advantage when the fight hits the mat, even with Feijoa's very good takedown defense. I expect Feijoa to spend some time on his back in this fight. If the fight remains standing, I give Rafael the edge. But in the footage I have seen of Romero, he has knockout power in his hands, surprisingly solid technique for a guy who's new to the fight game, and good head movement, and he seems very relaxed, not really rushing and making mistakes. Feijoa is a huge step up for him, but I'm going to call an upset and say Yoel Romero will dominate this fight with his wrestling and power and defeat Rafael Feijoa by stoppage. And finally, our third bout that I'm doing picks for, Marios Rogerio de Lima versus Mike Kyle. Kyle enters this bout looking to rebound from a knockout defeat against Bigfoot Silva that he fought at heavyweight. He has very heavy hands with 12 career knockout wins, and even though he's been KO'd 4 times, it should be noted that all 4 of these KOs came at the heavyweight division, meaning no light heavyweight's been able to knock him out. De Lima, he's undefeated. He's 8-0, and he has stopped 7 of his 8 opponents prior to a decision win over Paulo Filho in his last fight. Now, he's a very talented Muay Thai striker, and he clearly knows how to finish, but the grappling aspect of his game is still a work in progress. Paulo Filho tried to exploit this by controlling De Lima in the clinch, but he had limited success, and I attribute this to Filho simply being the smaller man at 5'8" against De Lima's 6'2". Mike Kyle, on the other hand, he should be able to succeed where Filho failed, as he will be the bigger fighter, and I would expect he's going to try and take De Lima out of his comfort zone, smother him on the cage, and use the clinch, and not allow him to strike. Mike Kyle hits very hard. He rarely goes to decision, so I'm going to take Kyle here to win this fight by stoppage. And those are my 3 preliminary picks for the Strikeforce event. Let's get to the main card. In the opening fight of the night, Pat Bam Bam Healy, 26-16, has been called upon as an injury replacement for Josh Thompson to take on promotional newcomer 8-2-1 Maximo Blanco. Blanco has won 6 in a row, while Healy has back-to-back victories. The veteran fighter, Pat Healy, is a far more known commodity in North America than his opponent. He began his career as a welterweight, but since the drop to lightweight, he is 4-1 with his only defeat coming against the guy he's replacing, Josh Thompson. Maximo Blanco, he's an explosive striker with impressive power. 7 of his 8 wins have come via knockout, 4 inside the first round, and the remaining 3 weren't able to get out of the second frame. Blanco is incredibly aggressive, coming out very fast, looking to put his opponent away with every strike he throws. Now, in his last fight, he did show a little bit more patience, but when he attacks, he does so aggressively, combining punches and kicks, all the while backing his opponent down. Now, Blanco has some wrestling background, but he really hasn't been forced to utilize it in his MMA career. Healy, on the other hand, relies heavily on his wrestling skills as the basis for his attack, and has 13 career submission victories along with 8 wins via knockout. But Healy is far from unbeatable, having suffered 17 career defeats, 4 by knockout, 6 by submission, and 7 by decision. The key for Maximo in this bout will be to return to his uber-aggressive style. Right from the bell, if Blanco comes out and blitzes Healy with both kicks and punches, he is very capable of scoring the knockout victory. If he elects to hold back and be cautious, it plays directly into his opponent's hands. In Healy's last bout against Eric Wisely, Healy used his wrestling and size to neutralize his opponent's striking attack. If Blanco doesn't score the early knockout, Healy presents a number of challenges that he really will have trouble dealing with. First, Blanco is yet to face a wrestler who will put him on his back and stifle him. Throughout his career, Maximo's opponents have been primarily striking-based. Secondly, Blanco will be slightly undersized, having spent time at 145, while Healy, who is a big lightweight, will stand 4 inches taller and should outweigh him by bell time. Thirdly, this will be Blanco's first fight inside a cage. Having spent his entire career in a ring, Maximo will have little experience fighting on the cage, especially against a guy who's known for utilizing the wall so effectively. Finally, Maximo will only have had roughly 2 weeks to prepare for this fight, as his original opponent Josh Thompson, not exactly the same as Healy, so that could play a role too as well. Now, Blanco is dangerous on the feet. The question is how long will he be able to keep it there, and secondly, how will he respond to the grinding and physically exhausting style of Healy, especially in the later rounds. Maximo Blanco is exciting, but Healy will be more effective, so my pick is Pat Healy to defeat Maximo Blanco by decision. In the Strikeforce light heavyweight division, we have 4-0 Roger Gracie taking on 7-1 King Mo Lawal. Gracie has won his first 2 Strikeforce bouts, while Mo is looking to rebound after dropping his title in his last outing. Roger Gracie, as his name would indicate, is a BJJ practitioner. He is a second-degree black belt, but when referring to a guy with Gracie's skill, he's on another level than regular black belts. Rightfully so, all 4 of his MMA wins have come via submission. Gracie's mount is death, and when he gets a dominant position, it's all but over. His opponent, King Mo, is a former NCAA Division I wrestler, and he also successfully completed on the international stage. Statistically, most takedowns are incredibly tough to defend, as he has completed 78% of his attempts. His takedown defense, which will be a key to success in this bout, is a perfect 100%. Gracie has equally impressive percentages in these areas, but vastly different numbers. Gracie is a perfect 100% in both categories, but has only had minimal attempts. Against Trevor Prangley, Gracie only needed 1 takedown to secure the submission, and Kevin Randleman only tried once unsuccessfully to take Roger down. Now, a lot of times when 2 talented grapplers meet, we are treated to a fight fought predominantly on the feet. Gracie's striking is improving. Still, for the most part, it is basic, but his technique did look better against Prangley. He has been training with GSP, focusing mainly on using his strikes to set up his takedowns, which makes sense. King Mo should have a marked striking advantage in this fight. His striking isn't overly technical, but he hits very hard, and his athleticism makes up for what he lacks in technique. So far, Gracie has been able to use his height and reach advantage to dictate the pace on the feet. In this matchup, he will be 4 inches taller than Mo, but his reach advantage will be limited to 1 inch. Roger has been able to keep his opponent at the end of his jab because of his reach, which could be more difficult against Mo, and his height advantage could actually inhibit him here. If Gracie wants to get the fight to the mat, he's going to have to drop down to Lawal's level, which, along with Mo's wrestling base, will make things difficult on Roger. Further, King Mo really likes to attack the body with punches and did so against Fejia with impressive power. Randleman had some success when he attacked Gracie's body, and when he landed, Gracie immediately reacted, showing they were very effective. We really haven't seen what happens when Roger gets hit hard, but I would expect that this will change against Mo. Mo will need to be careful if he clinches, as his head will be left vulnerable, and this will create openings for Roger to drag the fight to the mat. If Gracie is able to take Mo down, he can win this fight no problem. But I anticipate Mo working hard to keep it standing and at the same time showcasing his striking. Mo has been away from the cage for over a year, but he still represents a very big step up in competition for Roger. Look for Mo to attack Gracie's body, which will force Roger to drop his hands, leaving his head undefended. So I have Mo Lawal to defeat Roger Gracie by stoppage. The Strikeforce middleweight title will be on the line as the champion 14-2-1 Ronaldo Jacare Souza will battle Luke Rockhold 7-1. Rockhold's been away for over a year. Prior to that, he had won 6 in a row. Jacare's won 4 consecutive, including defending his title against Robbie Lawler. The first thing that this fight has me considering is the depth of the middleweight division in Strikeforce. Rockhold, he's a top prospect with a 6-0 record in the organization, but I find it hard to believe that in a division with depth, a fighter returning after 19 months away from the game would be granted a title shot. Further, this is a huge step up in competition for Rockhold. Prior to this fight, the biggest names he took on were Paul Bradley and Jesse Taylor, both Ultimate Fighter alums. Now, I'm not downplaying Luke Rockhold's skills because he really is a talented fighter. In his 7 career victories, he has never left the first round with 6 submission wins and 1 knockout. He's a BJJ brown belt and trains at AKA with guys like John Fitch and Cain Velasquez. In the cage, he does a little bit of everything. He dropped Corey Davella and Paul Bradley with a powerful right. He will use a high kick, has decent takedown defense, and will attack from the clinch. On the mat, he can scramble well, and if he is put on his back, he will attack with submissions. He holds 4 wins by rear naked choke, which indicates that he will work to advance his position. Jacare, on the other hand, he's a BJJ black belt. He has 11 career submissions and has never been tapped out. His only 2 defeats have come via knockout, with his last back in 2008 against Gegard Mousasi via up kick. Jacare's ground game is impressive, and he smothered both Robbie Lawler and Matt Lindland, eventually to submission wins. Almost equally as impressive are the improvements Souza has made in his striking, training out of Black House with next-level strikers like Anderson Silva and Junior Dos Santos. It really shouldn't come as a surprise. When you have a fighter that is as skilled on the mat as Jacare is, it really allows him to open up his striking, especially his kicks, because he simply has no fear of being taken down. Robbie Lawler did rock Jacare in the first round of their bout, but few possess the knockout power of Lawler, and as Jacare improves, openings like that one should disappear. Rockhold is going to have a height advantage and slightly longer reach than the champ, but I don't see these advantages equating to much. What this fight comes down to is where can Luke Rockhold win. For the most part, he has dominated his opponents in the grappling department, but Jesse Taylor gave him some trouble on the mat, and if Rockhold struggled with Taylor, Jacare should give him all kinds of issues. This would suggest that his best chance of taking this fight is to keep it standing. But with the improved striking that Jacare continues to show, I really have to wonder if Rockhold won't struggle there too. Rockhold, he's talented, but Jacare is on another level, and tossing the long layoff and step up in competition, and it'll be all too much for the challenger to overcome. Jacare's striking could lead him to his first knockout victory, but I'll play the percentages and say Jacare Souza defeats Luke Rockhold by submission. Shifting gears, we move to our first of 2 Grand Prix semifinal bouts. Antonio Bigfoot Silva, 16-2, will take on 8-0 Daniel Cormier, who's taking the place of Alistair Overeem. In the first round, Silva defeated Fedor Emelianenko for his 3rd consecutive win, while Cormier picked up the biggest win of his young career, defeating Jeff Monson in his last outing. In his win over Fedor, Bigfoot Silva used his significant size advantage to the utmost. The physical advantages possessed by Bigfoot in that bout will be even greater against Cormier. Silva will stand 5 inches taller than Cormier with an 11-inch reach advantage. Antonio Silva, he is a gargantuan heavyweight, and over his last 2 bouts, he has shown he knows how to use this to his advantage. He dominated Fedor with his size, and in a similar fashion was able to put Mike Kyle away. The end result of these fights are an indication of what the Brazilian is capable of. But if you look at what transpired before the end, I have a few concerns. Both Kyle and Fedor won the opening rounds against Silva. Kyle used his speed, dropped his opponent with a right, and spent the rest of the round on top. While Fedor was able to slightly outland Antonio, also showed a speed advantage, and when Bigfoot went for a takedown, Fedor used his hips to end up on top and remain there until he attempted the Kimura and was shrugged off. In the second round against Kyle, Silva immediately but unsuccessfully shot for a takedown, and before the first minute was up, succeeded in dragging Kyle to the mat. Against Fedor, he ducked under Emelianenko's opening punch for a takedown inside the first 2 seconds, and the rest is history. What this tells me is that Silva was not happy with how he fared in the first round and looked to change gears. Daniel Cormier will present similar challenges to Silva in the striking department. He is deceptively fast, has good endurance, and his striking is quickly improving, training out of the American Kickboxing Academy. Silva's reach will be an issue. When Fedor attempted to close the distance, Silva countered effectively, and Cormier will have to deal with this as well. But both Fedor and Kyle primarily threw punches against Silva, where Cormier has developed a nice arsenal of kicks which will help him to deal with the distance. Silva is far more experienced, he's been in the cage against superior talent, He's a BJJ black belt and is no slouch in the striking department either, but I really question his ability to score the knockout on the feet against Cormier. Of Andrei Arlovsky's last 4 defeats, Silva was the only one unable to knock him out. According to Fight Metrics, Silva landed 47 significant strikes on Arlovsky and spent a full 3 rounds in the cage with him, while Kharitonov, Rogers, and Fedor finished the fight inside the first round with far less strikes. Over his career, the majority of Silva's stoppages have come via ground and pound, which would involve getting his opponent to the mat. This will prove difficult against Cormier, as he is one of the most talented wrestlers in MMA. A former NCAA Division I and Olympic competitor, Cormier has never suffered a takedown or knockdown in his 8 MMA bouts. If Silva is going to gain control on the mat, he will need to use his jiu-jitsu to sweep, but Cormier has excellent top control, which will make things very difficult. Daniel Cormier is incredibly patient. He makes few mistakes, so Silva is going to have to create his own opportunities. Against Weirdham, Silva dropped him early but was unable to finish and faded from there out. Cormier does a nice job of transitioning between striking and grappling, which should serve to wear Silva down. Cormier will focus on his striking early, and when Silva attempts to grapple with him, the Olympian should be able to shrug him off and dictate where the fight goes from there. Silva's tough to finish, but Cormier will do just enough on the judges' cards, so I have Daniel Cormier to defeat Antonio Silva by a very close decision and advance to the tournament finals. In the main event of the evening, our second Grand Prix semifinal will pit 27-5 Josh Barnett against 18-4 Sergey Kharitonov. Barnett submitted Brett Rogers in the quarterfinals and has won 7 in a row, while Kharitonov knocked out Andrei Arlovsky for his second consecutive win to earn his berth in the semis. Looking first at the Russian, he has 9 career knockouts along with 8 submission wins. In his victory over Arlovsky, he used his power punching to overcome Arlovsky's speed and technique. Andrei was having success using his footwork to avoid Sergey's power, but Kharitonov eventually cut off the cage and overwhelmed him. As I mentioned, Sergey does have a number of submission wins, but I can't see him tapping out the catch wrestler in this bout. When he defeated Mike Russo, Sergey was struggling with Russo's takedowns as the wrestler was able to complete 3, along with advancing to several dominant positions until the armbar. In the end, Russo created the opening that led to the submission by leaving space between himself and Kharitonov. Conversely, when Josh Barnett defeated Brett Rogers, he did a good job limiting Rogers' space on the mat. Barnett used explosive takedowns and smothered Brett with his top control. If this fight stays standing, I give Sergey the edge, and should Barnett be able to take him down, the advantage shifts to the wrestler. Sergey's key to winning this fight will be to use his striking to create distance. As in every fight, the combatants start on their feet, which will give the Russian his best opportunity for victory. When Josh presses forward, looking for the takedown, Sergey's going to need to either counter-strike and back Barnett off with his power, or simply defend the takedown. Sergey does have good takedown defense, shutting down 72% of his opponent's attempts, but he is still vulnerable. In his last defeat, Jeff Munson was able to dive on one of Sergey's legs, drag him to the mat. From that point, Munson moved to top position, smothered Kharitonov, and eventually finished the fight with a north-south choke. I don't expect to see Barnett dive on a leg. Moreover, I anticipate him attempting to clinch. To avoid the clinch, Sergey could use a similar game plan to what Robbie Lawler attempted against Tim Kennedy, but Sergey isn't fast enough to rely strictly on movement alone. Barnett will use a body lock to either slam his adversary like he did in the first round against Rogers, or execute a throw like he did in the second frame. Sergey will need to counter this with dirty boxing, attacking Barnett's body and using short punches to target the head. If Kharitonov is unable to back Josh off, he's going to have to defend himself on the ground. Against Rogers, Barnett didn't use a lot of ground strikes to do damage, focusing more on maintaining his position and wearing Rogers out. At the conclusion of the first round, Josh did look to be a little tired, but I attribute that to ring rust, as it was his first bout in close to a year. Now, he should be better conditioned this time. What I really like about Barnett's ground game is his focus on dominant position. Both times he took Rogers down, he was able to secure good positioning as soon as he hit the mat, landing in side control following the slam and full mount after the throw. I feel Sergey's chances in this fight are just a little bit better than a puncher's chance. Barnett will look to exploit his shortcomings on the mat and secure his position in the tournament finals. So I have Barnett to defeat Sergey Kharitonov by submission. Welcome back to Kamikaze Countdown. I have 2 things I want to talk about, 2 fighters, 2 champions. First, we have Anderson Silva, the UFC middleweight champion. We just saw him defeat Yushin Okami. I picked Okami in that fight, my mistake. Silva was clearly the proper pick. Looking at that fight, Anderson Silva's a beast, and every time he wins a fight, it always pops up, especially on the boards. Who can beat Anderson Silva? And it becomes closer and closer. A lot of people are questioning who has the chance. Some people consider Chael Sonnen, but I wonder if Sonnen won't walk back into that fight and really get the short end of the stick. Only time will tell there. The big thing with Anderson is he still rubs me the wrong way. I don't like when fighters drop their hands and make an opponent look foolish. Guys work very hard to get where they are, and Okami put a lot of work in. I know he didn't really show up in that fight, but Anderson really made him look silly. I know it's Okami's position to stop that, but still. And the bowing business, I know might be a cultural thing or something he likes to do. I don't like the way Anderson bows in front of his opponent with the belt. I just think he's rubbing it in their face and saying, hey, my belt, yada yada, whatever. Anderson Silva, very interesting going forward. Maybe John Jones, you never know. Other guy, Alistair Overeem, heavyweight champion of Strikeforce, not really, but kind of. Mark my words, this guy is going to face the UFC heavyweight champion, the winner of Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez, because he was pulled out of the tournament. The UFC knew they couldn't pull him out like they pulled Nick Diaz out of the organization. I think a little bit of this business with the injury and being cut and such was a little bit of a smokescreen. Maybe not entirely, but check out my post-fight podcast for UFC 134 as I give my Strikeforce conspiracy theory breakdown. But I think it was a little bit of a smokescreen. They pulled him out because they didn't want him to be devalued by potentially losing the tournament. He comes out of the tournament. They don't really have a lot of fighters that could fight for the title just yet in the UFC after Dos Santos Velasquez. So Overeem makes the next reasonable shot at the title. So he will fight the next guy challenge for the championship. Plus, the tournament will create another winner for Strikeforce that will make some sense. Don't worry, it's all going to fall into place, and business as usual for the UFC has become nothing but a joke with regard to the Strikeforce. Kamikaze Countdown. Thanks for watching. All right, those are my picks for Strikeforce Barnett versus Kharitonov. I did 5 main card predictions, the 2 Grand Prix finals, and the middleweight title fight, plus 3 preliminary fights. Check those out on HDNet if you get an opportunity. They're going to be very good. You see them at some point, whether it's afterwards, check them out. You also may notice Sports Interaction. I've started pushing them again. Click on the link below. You'll get a sign-up bonus, and a little bit of that comes towards me, which is always much appreciated. The reason I do is I've been in constant contact with Sports Interaction about how they do their betting, and they've made some very good changes, and I'm really quite happy with what they've done. One thing, you're not allowed to parlay anything together, which is good. Their odds are competitive with any other book out there. And secondly, they're allowing now, not on all fights, but in the majority of the fights, like I think it was all fights actually for the last show, they're giving you an option to bet on an under-over for round totals. Now, I know a lot of other fights do this, but the thing Sports Interaction does is they allow you to parlay this with other fights and other wins, fighter picks, or other round total over-unders, where other sites don't allow you have to do single bets only. So last week, you could take the over-under on 3.5 rounds with Anderson Silva and Yushin Okami, and the under paid like $1.55, where Silva paid $1.16 to win. So, in that case, if you didn't want to bet on Silva, you could bet on the over-under, take the under as it turned out to be, and combine it with maybe Shogun winning, or maybe the Shogun over-under, and it pays a little bit better than a fighter that's a heavy favorite, so it gives you more betting options. I always like to make a miracle bet with 10 picks, just something fun, put a little bit of cash down on it. I combine the over-unders and the best odds of fighter payouts, and a very small bet. The odds were gigantic. It paid something like $30,000. Once in a blue moon, I do get on a roll. It's hard to believe lately, and I do have a good run. But check out Sports Interaction. Click on the link. Give them a look. I'm quite happy with them now. I did drop them recently because I wasn't happy with what they've done. But we've been talking back and forth, and they've made some nice changes. Check it out. It's a good and reliable betting site. Next fight's coming up. I can't remember the date. Maybe September 17th. Strikeforce Fight Night, Jake Shields, and my thoughts go out to him and his family. He lost his father, Jack Shields, but he will be taking on Jake Ellenberger. He's not pulling out of that fight, and I wish him all the best of luck. Haven't started predicting yet. We'll see how that turns out. And as always, thank you for watching. I will see you back here in a short period of time, and good luck betting this weekend.